If you're starting a new gardening or landscaping project, and if you want to save money on plants, propagating or nurturing some plants of your own can save a ton of money. And it's not as difficult or time consuming as most think. So welcome. Today I want to share a little bit of behind the scenes. This is how I propagate plants for projects in my spare time. And we'll talk about what you need, bare minimum, to efficiently make new plants for your yard. And we'll see what a system looks like for creating some really great plants from scratch for almost free. If you are installing your landscape in phases like most of us do, it is nice to have a small place like this to collect, propagate, and care for your plants until you have the soil prepared for that next garden bed. So even if you aren't installing things in phases, it's pretty rare, pretty much impossible that you will purchase all of the plants you need for the entire project all at once at one place. So planning somewhere for plants to be in the meantime, even just that day when you bring things home from the nursery, have a spot planned so that you can care for them. It's very helpful. I'm sharing what I am doing, but you do not need to do anywhere near as much for your yard. And the systems I have now are not exactly what they used to be, because now I teach online. I teach landscape design and gardening for do-it-yourselfers online full-time. I do still care for a few of my past clients' yards occasionally. What you're seeing here today includes some plants for them, some for volunteer projects, sometimes for a little side hustle cash, but mostly just for fun because I love making new plants and I can't stop. I like to propagate native plants and veggies and give them to people who will take good care of them. So welcome to the deck. Got some peas growing. These just flopped over in the rain. I need to expand on the trellis, so this was just a few days ago. Here I've got various plant cuttings, some native plants, where you can see it's not super complicated to take cuttings, just various twigs from native plants that I'm just kind of stick into the soil. Kind of depends on the plant, but some of them root more easily than others. And then all of these currants they started out in a pot like this, where we started with a bunch of branches, and then once they all rooted, I transplanted them into individual pots. Some of these are from projects where there's baby plants that are sprouting up around the parent plants in the established landscape. If there's no room for them to grow to maturity, may as well dig them up, bring them here, pot them up. So this is an example, again, of how easy it can be to start plants for your landscaping projects. Oregon Sunshine, we have seed that was saved from one of my projects. This is some that we ordered from another company. Here I have some penstemon I planted. I did not think these seeds were older. They'd been through a lot. I did not think they were going to come up. And I just spread them here. These have already been transplanted out. So incredible germination rate, very unexpected. Same with the goldenrod, the Douglas aster. Did not expect these to germinate so well. So clearly I have more plants than I need. But I'll pot some of these up into 4-inch pots and just kind of start a collection that I'll start giving away to people. And honestly, I'll probably just give handfuls of these away to some friends to establish. These things will grow very happily. These are some of the more aggressively growing native plants. It's a good thing in the right spot. Here we have butterfly milkweed. We've got this showy milkweed, and I've got some yarrow I started here as well. It's just absolutely adorable. Yarrow is so easy to grow from seed, but I like to have some started in 4-inch pots or even in 1-gallon pots to give as gifts, because it's one of the most chill native plants. It tends to be very well behaved, so in a very conventional landscaping setting, when people want plants that aren't going to spread too much, that's still going to support native pollinators, this is the gift. It's kind of like the entry level or the gateway native plant, native perennial. Oregon Sunshine's wonderful too, but yarrow just seems to be, in my experience, a little bit tougher. And you'll notice right here I've got a baby Douglas fir tree coming up. That was a surprise. For you to do something like this on your own, again, I used potting soil in these trays. They have drainage holes in them. It's easy as getting your hands on some perennial native seeds, native wildflower seeds. I fill up the tray with soil, and then I like to mark different sections with a plant tag on its side, a stick, some rocks, whatever I've got. Label things really well. Of course, it makes it easier to keep track of stuff. Some of these you can start in the fall, some you can start in early spring, and then you end up with these baby perennial plants that you can start establishing in your landscape. Seed packets are a couple of dollars each, and if you have anybody else in your life who already grows these native plants, if you can connect with someone who's already doing this, collect seeds, or maybe they are interested in sharing some seed packets, it can bring the cost down quite a lot. Now, the bare minimum that you need: some soil, some pots, and a water source. So especially when you're growing things in pots or trays, They will need to be watered consistently, especially in the summer. They will dry out quickly in the heat. Putting them somewhere where they get full sun, but not necessarily in a solar oven, not along a driveway where it gets 14 hours of sun and it gets really hot in the middle of nothing else. Somewhere around 8 hours of sun. I do like tables because then you can put some plants on top of the table, other plants below the table. And then when you take cuttings and such, it can be nice to put them below the table where they get just partial sun. It's a little bit cooler, but table's not necessary though. You can grow things from seeds or cuttings, or you can look around the plants in your landscape already, see if there are any babies that are already coming up. Look around the bases of shrubs and see if any of the branches are propagating themselves by layering. So that's when a branch lowers itself down and then it starts to root where it's connecting with the ground. You can cut that, separate it, and then just pot that plant up and you have a baby plant just like that. If you have herbaceous perennials in your yard, you can divide them, pot them up. You can let them get a head start for your next garden bed. Maybe if you're working on preparing the soil for that next garden bed, you can put things in pots temporarily until then, or you can then pot things up and trade them with people, give them away. There are so many reasons to have a place where you can be propagating plants. Even if you don't plan on propagating anything for your yard, if there is going to be this period, this transitional period where you have plants, but you're not going to be able to plant them immediately, plan a place where you can, like a mini plant holding area where you can have plants temporarily sitting. You can water them and care for them properly until you're ready to get them in the ground. Maybe hold on to some extra pots in case some things are getting a little root bound as they're sitting and waiting. It can be good to have a selection of things on hand so you can transplant things into a larger pot. A little bit of soil, some extra pots of various sizes. It's pretty rare for you to find all of the plants that you need for your project just in one nursery visit. And even if you do, it still makes sense to have a place to keep those plants until you're ready to put them in the ground. Unless your soil's ready, then by all means, get things in the ground as soon as possible. Plants don't love being transplanted, so it's the sooner you can get them in their future home where they can start getting settled, the better. Here's the greenhouse. This is where I had room for it. It's nothing fancy, but it is a greenhouse. So I've got my potting bench here where I store some outside cuties. This is native butterfly milkweed. Pro tip, if you want to grow butterfly milkweed to support monarchs, you need to get your native species. Make sure you're growing the right kind to support your local monarch butterflies. These are some cuttings. I might have been on a walk and picked just some little branches, little teeny tiny twigs about, maybe that high off of these. This is hot lip salvia. While on a walk, just snipped a few branches off right along the street, very subtly. Don't report me, but then I put them in a jar of water, got them rolling because it's in the mint family. It's pretty easy to get rolling in a jar of water. And they've been sitting here. So that was in the fall. I did that, potted these up. Those will be a gift. This is from some seeds I collected from, again, I was on a walk. It's a black-eyed Susan. And these are some native Western Columbine I started from seeds. I spread these seeds in the fall. This is my pot of arugula. I've pretty much finished eating most of it, and I'm going to let it go to seed. Collect the seeds. These are plants for a friend. And here is the chaotic mess that is this greenhouse. And you do not need a greenhouse to grow plants, especially if you're growing plants for your yard, things that are going to survive outside in your climate anyway. It can actually be better to start things outside so they can experience the cold. That can increase the germination rate, the number of seeds that come up. If you start your native wildflower seeds outside in the fall, they can experience the changes in temperature, and then they'll come up at the time that's best for them to come up in the spring. It's amazing. But it is nice to have a warm place to start some of the more sensitive annual vegetables in the spring. So I like to get a head start on some of these things to extend the growing season. That's why I love having a greenhouse. And I've gotten by with a sunny windowsill as well. Got to get as much light as possible so your little plant starts, they don't stretch out too much. They become leggy if they're reaching for the sun. And this greenhouse, where it's located, actually does not get as much light as it could or should. But this is the space I had for it, and it works. So things are a little bit leggy, but it's not a problem. And honestly, this thing is mostly a giant squirrel guard, because when I plant seeds, I have all this nice potting soil. All the lazy squirrels in the neighborhood just get so excited about the soil that's easy for them to dig into, and they'll bury peanuts and stuff. So the greenhouse is nice because I have the door closed. I don't have to worry about that. So every year since I was maybe 15, 16 years old, I've been growing saving seeds from this Hungarian wax pepper. I have Grand Colomia, which is a Pacific Northwest native. It's an annual, and it should have been planted out 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, but you know, it'll get there. This is one I love. I grew this years ago, and then I didn't for a long time, and this year I'm just obsessed with purples. This is Orach, O-R-A-C-H, and it's an annual, it's in the amaranth family, and look at that color. So this is something, the greens are a little bit salty, oddly, and they're very mild. Yeah, it's a little bit salty, a little bit grassy, but I just love adding this to salads because it's gorgeous. So I am growing it for fun this year, just as like a decoration. And you'll notice that I just pinched the top off of this one, and now all of these little side branches are going to grow. This is one I ate the top off of not too long ago. Added this to salad when some friends came over. So now we'll get all of these side shoots. It'll make the plant a little bit bushier, because you'll notice all of this space in between the leaves. It's a little bit more than maybe should be there, because this greenhouse does not get the sun that it really needs. It is what it is. It's working. Here's the Oregon Sunshine that I started from seed this spring. So this is a perennial. I'll have this plant for years. This is something I'm going to be giving away to people mostly, because I only have so much space. You will notice these trays of absolute chaos. I like to broadcast sow a lot of these vegetable plants, typically when I'm more likely to get them planted out right away. But instead of doing a little plant in one pot, I just spread the seeds. This is great if your seeds are a little bit older too. I like to hoard seeds, and so I'm kind of always cycling through. So I plant new things, I plant some older things. So I broadcast sow, and I'll separate these little sections out and plant individual things. And then once things have, they get the first two leaves that come out, those are the seed leaves, they're the cotyledons. You wait until they have at least two, but ideally four leaves, 2 sets of leaves, right, besides those seed leaves. So maybe 3 sets total, 2 sets total minimum before you transplant things. And that's, the more gentle I can be when I separate these out, the less of a shock they're in when I transplant them. But when I'm low in space, when I just want to grow a ton of things, I just throw, spread a pinch of seeds, broadcast sow them in this tray. Then what comes up, and then I separate after that. It's a great way to get things rolling initially. I don't always plant things into bigger pots. Normally I just plant them right out. Kind of depends on what I'm doing. So these will definitely go into a little bit of transplant shock when I separate them out. I plant them out in that bed in the garden, but that's okay. I still managed to grow the kale, and I will still plant that kale out, and it will be okay. Something's up with the basil. I am not sure exactly what that is, but I'll put it outside and see if it does better. I started these annual wildflowers from seed, just in a tray, and then I transplanted them into these pots. It's a little bit overkill. Ideally, I would just be sowing these out. It's California poppies, it's Madia or tarweed. I like to call it Madia. I feel like tarweed is not a very pretty name for such a beautiful plant. So these should have been planted out by now, and they're starting to bloom, but most of them already have been shared with others, planted out. I'm going to give some of these away. A few of them are going to go in my yard still. Baby nodding onion, native perennial. We've got baby camas, which I started from seed. It was in the summer last year. They did not come up until about, I think it was mid-March. So here's one of my favorite gardening tools, a fork. It's how I like to scoop up or separate plants out when they're growing close together, just because it's hard to kind of grab and separate plants when they're in a cluster like this. These should have been potted up individually. We've got Thai basil, cilantro, all of these. This kale, I had a way better germination on this than I expected, so I overplanted, but I will separate these out. Some of them, nobody screamed, but I might just pinch a few off and eat them because, that's delicious. So like in this case, when I have 3 growing in a spot, like right here, I will maybe pinch 2 off, and then I'll plant 1, and I'll just grab this whole chunk of soil like that, plant it out. Not ideal, but it happens. My broccoli rabe should have been planted. It just went to seed, so I've actually been enjoying. I come in here and break them off and cook them and eat them. It honestly, it tastes amazing. It's really sweet and tender. Like here, it has all of my Swiss chard that I also overplanted, and some Oregon Sunshine that's getting swallowed up. Let's get them out of there. Check out these Oregon Sunshine cuties. And one of the reasons this is sitting here for so long is because I have a lot of work to do in my soil. outside. This year I expanded my garden bed. I need to amend the soil. I'm going to add some compost from my compost bin. I did manage to get lime on it at least 6 months ago, so the pH is good, but it's not ready for all these cuties yet. Here we have the Oric, the Colomia, Columbines. We got zinnias that are a little bit leggy. Got my fancy varieties here. I really enjoy growing zinnias as cut flowers. All the Hungarian wax peppers. And I'm so excited about this. This is madrone. This is a native tree. And I collected these from a neighbor's yard, again, right along the edge of the street on a walk. And we collected the seeds and just threw them out in those 6-packs. They got to experience the cold temperatures through the whole winter. Then they started coming up in the spring. Really exciting. We got some native fescue. More of that over here. These are my Bikino peppers or sweetie drop peppers. Got some penstemon that I started from seeds I collected. And hold up, who's that? I have no idea who that is. This is my super fancy flower pot collection, my hoard of plant pots and trays. And I am very lucky to have had access, especially to some of these larger pots from past projects, you know, just from the work that I'm doing. But people throw these away all the time. So if you're hoping to start your own collection, just start spreading the word that you're interested in these and tell friends and family. And I have been known to snoop around on Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, Craigslist, and watch for people who are posting flower pots for free. Nextdoor can be another great resource. If you want these, it's pretty easy to start accumulating them, start spreading the word. This is leftover potting soil from last year, and anytime I have the opportunity to collect some extra soil, I put that in a pot and I store it here till I can use it. And every year I do have to bring in a little bit of soil. Sometimes I'll get bags, sometimes I'll get something by the cubic yard delivered, but for the most part, I try to I use about half of the potting soil from last year, and then I supplement it with compost and a little bit of new soil every year. Keep things refreshed. A little bit of crop rotation can be a good idea too. Here I have a couple of warm bins where I bury my food scraps. And this bin I used to transport soil in the back of my car. And this is where finished compost almost out. I need to empty out the bin. So I have these warm bins. I have another compost bin in the side yard. And then I use this soil in the containers every year. I've got plants in the driveway. I've got plants in the porch. Hanging out. Actually, I should show you some of these cuties. So a lot of these came from my friend's yard where she planted a native shrub and wildflower mix. And these came up as seedlings, dug them out because there was not room for, some of these things get to be pretty big. This is a serviceberry. We've got some native dogwood. We've got salmonberry. We've got elderberries. These get to be pretty massive. So I potted them up and I'll find them a new home. They've been kind of getting established. I think it was last late summer or early fall that I just put the tiniest things. I just had maybe 4 or 6 leaves when I potted them up. They should be in bigger pots at this point. More over here, I have a native rhododendron I've been waiting for the right home for. Some of these I do have a plan for, others hang out until I find the right home. So if you want to learn more about landscape design, I have a free mini course. It's called Ready, Set, Landscape Design. This is for anyone who's starting a new landscaping project. So for steps to take, mistakes that people often make right at the start. So if you want to check it out, it's linked in the description below. You can watch that today. And you might be interested in my video full of tips on shopping for plants. That'll pop up next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.